Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. In this episode, I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that I did as a pastor this weekend, and then reflect a little bit on what it taught me about the Christian life. And I would say taught, but maybe more so reminded. And so one of the blessings that I have being a pastor is that periodically I get to officiate at weddings. This is probably a part of the job that I don't do very often. I would say I probably average 1 to 2 weddings a year. But it is a joy when I get to do them for the most part. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about the process of what that looks like if you ever are in a position where you would like me to officiate at your wedding, so you have some idea of what that looks like. But if someone is interested in having me officiate their wedding or having the wedding here at the church, they need to contact the church. And I would prefer that that wedding be at least 6 months out, because I do require that the couples go through premarital counseling with me prior to us putting it on the calendar. That gives me a sense of whether or not I believe that this couple is ready for this level of commitment, and that they've done the work necessary to have a successful marriage. And so those sessions are a minimum of 3 sessions, and it really depends on the couple and the conversation and where it goes and what comes out of that conversation. So sometimes it's gone longer. It's a minimum of 3. And maybe you're wondering, what are the kinds of things that we talk about during premarital counseling? That's a good question, because I think it's important to have open and honest communication prior to getting married to someone. And I see that as kind of the number one goal is not so much that they're giving me the right answers to things, but have they worked out things in their own relationship. And so again, different couples will answer these things differently, but if they can demonstrate that they've kind of talked through it and they both have come to the same agreement that they've talked about it, that's what I'm looking for. So usually I want to know about them and their relationship, how they met, how they got to the point where they're engaged, maybe even hearing their engagement story, just again to get to know them a little bit. And that's kind of the fun there in that sort of high moment. And so it's a nice way to sort of just break the ice. And then I start asking questions about their families of origin. Now, that may feel a little intrusive, but frankly, I go way more intrusive. So I want to know about the parents, the grandparents. What, are they still married? What do they do for a living? And any kind of siblings, and if they're married, and so on and so forth. Because what I'm really trying to suss out is what kind of experiences with marriage have these two people had in their life, because often we bring into our own marriage assumptions based on what we have witnessed of others, and particularly our own parents. And so those kinds of things are helpful. We will talk about things like finances and debt and how are bills getting paid for, and do you have what are your plans for the future and investing in the future, and how do you deal with all of those things? Are you going to have a joint account? Are you going to have separate accounts? If you have separate, how do you decide who pays for what, and what are, and we get into some detail about that, because believe it or not, finances are such a major contributor to successful marriages, and also marriages that end in divorce, is often because people do not have a clear understanding of or of their partner's approach to money, or their partner's situation when it comes to money, in particular debt. And so that's a really important conversation. Again, I don't necessarily guide people to one way of doing it or another, but I will ask questions to make sure that they've actually thought it all through. We talk about things like the chores, and how are you splitting up household jobs, and things like that, because it used to be that the men do the stuff outside and the cars, and the women take care of the kids and the cooking and the cleaning and whatever. those roles are not necessarily gendered in the same way anymore. And so I tend to take the approach that each couple, depending on the personalities of the people in that relationship, which jobs they should end up doing. And again, I'm not telling them that this is the way it needs to be. What I am trying to suss out is, have you had that conversation? Have you found a solution that both of you agree to and can work with? And then the other thing I say is those can get renegotiated at any time, but hopefully, but I wouldn't recommend trying to renegotiate them in a fight. I also think that's a really healthy thing to talk about as well, if for any sort of roommate situation, to start off with a really clear communication on what your expectations are. Like, what's your standard level of cleanliness? Like, what do you see as whose role and things like that. We will talk about the future. We will talk about, you know, dreams of family and what that looks like, about careers, about um, uh, all of that kind of stuff. Because again, what I'm trying to do is to make sure that there has been enough communication, that the big factors that often contribute to marital strife have been talked about, because it can be very easy to want to sort of shy away from difficult things. But marriage, if it's going to last a lifetime, you need to be able to trust the person you're marrying, and you need to be able to communicate with them. We also do a personality test in there to help the couple know each other a little bit better. I don't prescribe a specific one. I let them kind of choose one that speaks to them because, in my opinion, it's giving them language to be able to talk about themselves. And so sometimes it can be helpful if you have one spouse who, when they're angry, wants to retreat and think about things and then come back and talk about it. And you have another spouse that hates conflict and either is going to avoid it altogether or wants to deal with it immediately and get it resolved immediately. There can be tension there in how you fight. So that's one of the things we talk about. Um, so we do all of that. We do all of that work months in advance of a wedding. And it's the time that I get to know the couple. And, I always say to them that, like, from this point on, I'm the biggest cheerleader in your marriage. And I'm also, I'm going to be a safe place. And so we think of premarital counseling, I think of it in two ways. I think it is the counseling that you do prior to your wedding, to the start of your marriage, to help set you up for the best um, marriage possible, and that it's also pre-marital counseling. And so any couple that's gone through premarital counseling with me also has the option at any point in their marriage, no matter if I have moved or not, to call me up and to utilize me for some marriage counseling, or to be a safe listening person, or to kind of do some just help reflect and clarify if they're in a tough spot. Um, because again, we've built up that trust. They know me, I know them, they know that I'm rooting for them. And so it's just a really important part of the process that really nobody gets to see, but lays the foundation for, I think, a really healthy marriage and a really beautiful wedding. Because after that process, I've gotten to know the couple, um, and I'm able to speak into that then during the wedding. And so then typically they go through all the work here, getting things organized with the church, and what do they need, and they ask a million questions that most of the time I don't know answers to. Craig is a much better resource. How much does a sanctuary hold? Do we have tables for this? Can we put chairs here? I mean, all of the nitty-gritty detail kind of stuff. Um, and then when it comes to that weekend, we do a rehearsal the day before, and then the wedding is the day of. Um, Very rarely have I detoured off of that plan. So this weekend, I got to officiate a wedding, again with a couple that I had gone through premarital counseling with, and got to walk with them in that time. And it's been a while since, I think it's been over a year since I've had a wedding, so it was kind of it's always an interesting thing when there's a part of your job where, like, I almost feel like I have to relearn it every time that I do it. doing like the rehearsal of like, okay, how do I handle this? When did I normally say this? Even though I have the script, there's always like just the little details that I sort of need to refresh on. It's kind of like riding a bike, like it comes back, but sometimes it takes a little bit if it's been a while. Um, but this wedding in particular had an element to it that I've not seen before, which is pretty impressive. I've been to a fair number of weddings, officiated a fair number of weddings. And so it's not often that there's a new element uh, in the wedding that is new to me. But this particular couple requested something a little different. Normally, you'll see things like unity candles. I had a unity candle at my wedding. I had a friend for maybe 10, 15 years ago, the big trend was unity sand. Um, which I never really liked as much. Also because, like one bad move and all the layers that you make will be gone and it's all just mixed up together and there you go. Um, I've seen people braid rope together. That one takes a lot of practice. If you are someone who's looking to get married and you're looking for like a unity ceremony, just know that the rope braiding, you're gonna need to rehearse that one ahead of time for sure. Um, but this couple didn't do a unity ceremony. Instead, they decided to, and I really honestly don't know where they got this from, where they found it or saw it, but they got a box and they put their name on it, what their married name would be. And then inside the box, they put a bottle of wine, unopened. And then they asked four couples in their life, to write them a letter that they would read on their 10th anniversary while they drank that bottle of wine. And so the couples were the couple's parents and grandparents. And during the ceremony, we had the box displayed. It was very simple as far as like decorating go, which I wish people would have seen because sometimes simplicity is the best way to go because then you're not focused on all the stuff around you. You're really focused on the couple. And so they had this box. And then during the ceremony, we invited those couples, we named them and invited them to come forward and place their letter in the box. And then the box was closed, not to be opened again for 10 years. And they talked about how it was an investment in their future and their confidence in the longevity of their marriage, um, but also a recognition of how each one of these couples has been an impact on their life, has modeled for them marriage and a healthy marriage and a Christian marriage, and that they feel confident in their own marriage because of the examples that they had been given in all of them. And it was really moving after the service. The most feedback that I got was how much people really enjoyed that element of the service. And I would have to agree. I thought it was also a really interesting, but also really cool investment. And I like that word of investment. Like we are invested in this. We are inviting our family to be invested in our marriage. And we are acknowledging with gratitude, which the sermon this week is on gratitude. And so this kind of fits in with that as well. Um, the examples that we've been given. And that also just reminds me of discipleship in general and how important it is for us to have those kinds of role models in our lives, or who are the people that we are looking to and modeling our own lives after, whether intentionally or not. And being sure that we are surrounding ourselves with people that can show us how to do what Christ has asked us to do. I'm reminded that Paul talks a lot about, especially when he's writing to Timothy, his protege, of how like um, you need to behave in a way that people are going to learn the faith from you, because you know, Paul and Timothy didn't have the opportunity to follow Jesus himself in his life and ministry. They came after. And so they are already inheriting a faith. They're already learning the faith from somebody other than Jesus. And that's how the faith has been passed down from generation to generation, year after year, decade after decade, century after century. And how important it is for us to surround ourselves and find those role models in the faith that we can look to learn how to live out our faith. Just as this couple looked to these other couples to learn how to be a part of a solid marriage, we need to be intentional about finding people that we can look up to who teach us the true faith. Um, I think too often we are not critical enough of the people that we allow to influence us, the people who we allow to tell us what to do or how to think, that we are not actually sitting down and being intentional about, is this person leading me in a way toward Christ, or is this person leading me in a way away from Christ? Um, and I think that's something that we need to be mindful of. Um, but then also when we find those people, to express our gratitude for their presence in our lives. I look back on my own life and I can think of various people throughout my life and throughout my faith journey who have had profound impacts on me and who have invested in me and who I've been able to look to and model myself after as I'm learning how to be faithful in my own life. And it doesn't mean that we're copying them word for word, but it does mean that you learn from them, you follow them, and then it seems like you do it for a season and then you go on to a new person or a new situation. And that's part of growing and maturing in our faith and discipleship. I think of, especially, there was a couple when I was in high school that taught Sunday school, and they were the first ones to take me to a Christian concert. And very much the wife, I modeled uh, a lot of my behavior off of what I saw her do because I knew her to be strong in the faith. And I figured if um, she's further along than me. She's got some more things figured out than I do, so I can learn from her. And then when I went off to college, I remember I really modeled myself after one of my professors who was my advisor, that she was at a place in her life that was a place that I wanted to be. And so I started to see what she did in order to get to where she was and learn how to adapt that in my own life. And then, in seminary and so on. And there was just in every stage, there was somebody or that I feel like was put in my life to help guide me along and to help me. And again, it's not that you are being yourself, it's that you are allowing these people to be guides in your journey of faith, and that there's something for each one of them to teach us. And so it's having some humility to go, what do I have to learn from this person? Um, but I also believe that it's important for us to have gratitude. And so I keep going back to that wedding of how in that moment it was, they have asked these couples to do this thing for them, but also it was an acknowledgement and a gratitude um, during the wedding to like put the spotlight on them for a moment and say, we would not be here if it wasn't for your example. And so it was such a beautiful moment. And again, I think everyone who was in attendance at that wedding felt that way. I know I certainly felt that way. And it definitely made me think about who are the people in my life who have modeled what a good marriage is, and who are the people that I think about and look to when I'm trying to decide how to behave in my own marriage. Um, and then feeling like I need to make sure that they are aware of that and to show my gratitude, which again is a little hint at this week's sermon. Um, so those are just some of the thoughts I had this weekend, getting to do a wedding, which is a part of my job, but again, a part I don't often get to do. I do believe I have a couple weddings already scheduled for next summer, so that'll be a little busier than I have been for a while. But also very exciting. It's a big deal. We've also had a couple baptisms. I've got another one scheduled next month, and so that's really exciting. I love doing baptisms. This last weekend was so, oh, there's something, tiny babies are just so adorable and cute and love it. But this girl was a little bit older than her cousin who was baptized the week before. And so I held her sitting up and I was able to talk directly to her. And then she kept just being so like physically drawn to the baptismal font and to the water. Like even when we were doing the questions and stuff, she was like falling over her parents trying to get to the like, let me at it. This is my turn. I am ready to do this. And she would lean down and she would put her fingers in the water. And there was just something so beautiful about her eagerness for this ritual. And she was totally cool with it and did such a beautiful job. And that was really a blessing to my heart as well. So this weekend there was definitely a lot of highs. I would say a lot of God moments for sure. And so I'm really pleased with that. Um, we are in the midst of our generosity challenge sermon series, and so there are those inserts that are going home. Those are don't need to be turned in. Those are really for you and for some self-reflection and to kind of just work through as we prepare to turn in our estimates of giving by October 27th. And so again, all of this is doing work in us. Generosity is a part of who we are, being made in the image of God, and developing our generosity is developing a God-given part of who we are. And so it's an important thing for us to talk about. It's an important thing for us to develop. It's an important thing for us to live out as part of our faith. And so I hope that you are getting something out of this. And I hope that you are also prayerfully considering what God is asking you to give in the next year and where that should go. And so I thank you for doing that work. Don't forget as well on the 27th to be in worship because we're doing our big celebration following worship and we'll have stuff for the whole family, including dinner, lunch. See, I grew up on Sunday calling the midday meal dinner, like Sunday dinner was lunchtime. My husband's not from the Midwest, and we go back and forth on what we call meals all the time, and my kids get very confused. So I'm still learning there. Um, but you can fill out your estimate of giving. Either you should have received that in the mail, but also if we'll have it available online as well. The leadership team applications are available on the website as well. You can fill them out there. Again, we do have openings in SPPR, our staff, Pastor Parish Relations Committee, and trustees and in finance. Every year we'll have one opening in those. And also if you're interested in being an annual conference delegate, you need to apply for that as well. We do get 3 lay delegates to annual conference every year. And so we can have up to 3 people go plus me. So those things are all coming up. We need to have our applications and for leadership team and stuff done prior to charge conference, which is at the end of November. And so, but we need time for the nominations committee to meet. And if you're curious who the nominations committee is, that are the 3 members of leadership team that will be rolling off. Again, these are 3-year terms. And so if they're just completing their 3rd year, they then become part of the nomination committee who reviews the applications and helps decide who's going to be joining leadership team the next year. I think that's the best way to do it because they are in the best position to know what the work is and what the role is and what the, like who would be the right fit for that and to be prayerfully considering those things. And so that's why we do it that way. Also, you need to be a member. If you are watching this and you were like, I'm not a church member, but I think I want to be, would you please let me know so that I know whether or not I need to schedule a new members class? I've been doing them sort of on a rolling basis. I don't do them kind of set times, but if I know I have a group of people that are interested in membership, I will certainly get a class on the schedule. So just let me know if you're interested in membership in our church. One, we would love to have you be a member. And it's just kind of that next level of commitment. Like, this is my place. These are my people. I'm going to invest here. We would love to have you. But please let me know so that I know enough. I have a group that will do it together. So, don't forget also getting stuff for Soup Kitchen, the country store, trunk or treat. Next week we have our ditch cleanup sponsored by the Green Team. So yeah, we're in the thick of it. And so lots going on. And I hope that this fall is treating you well and to see you soon. God bless. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Going On, a video and audio podcast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m., either in person or via our live stream, which can be found at our website, www.firstumcyankton.org, or by searching First UMC Yankton on YouTube.